Welcome, everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 Patterns and Practices General Development Special Interest Group. And as you noted, potentially already in social media, we're kind of repositioning this goal to be across the Microsoft 365. And that's mainly because we've seen this transition gradually happening already, that in a lot of our calls, we actually talk about many of other things as well, not just SharePoint, because obviously, if you think about the Microsoft 365, it's not about those siloed products and siloed services and things. Typically, you end up actually implementing stuff across multiple services, or you use SharePoint framework, and then you target your application to be hosted as an add-in in Outlook or as a My Personal Teams tab, as an example. So now that we're mixing all of this stuff together, finally, which is a good thing, and it's a great that we are finally doing this. We're also kind of transitioning from using the SharePoint PnP to the Microsoft 365 PnP term. The terminology, basic process, everything is the same. Sharing is caring mentality is still there, so don't worry about it. You'll see less green, more blue. That's just a transitioning to the Microsoft coloring as well. The blue is the official Microsoft color, so we're kind of actually moving into that one in the terminology as well. You'll see us mix and match things for a while until we'll get stuff moving. Now, by the way, related on that one, even though I'm now rambling, I'm going to take a few minutes on this one. SharePoint Framework call will still remain as a SharePoint Framework call, at least for now, because the SharePoint Framework, even though you would be targeting Microsoft Teams tabs or personal applications built with SharePoint Framework, it is still called SharePoint Framework, at least for now. So we're going to keep that name as it is, at least for now. Now, let's actually move on forward. So it is March 19th, 2020. Things have changed quite significantly in the world since the last time we had a community call, and things are evolving. But we try to keep this call every single week, constantly and consistently. And there's a high demand for MVPs and non-MVPs on doing demos on those calls. So we're definitely looking into doing this. Obviously, if somebody needs to cancel, do family situation or a environmental changes on their home or their office, and that's completely understandable and then we'll adjust these things. But I promise to be present in all of the calls at least, unless there's something super surprises happening. Now, on today's typical agenda, we'll go through the PnP CSOM Core updates and PnP PowerShell updates, and then modernization tooling updates. And then we have 3 demos coming up. We have Chris Kent talking about amazing list experience adjustments with column and view formatting. Once again, I have no idea what he's going to present. And there was a few guidance lines which on the topics which he should not cover because this is a family show. But let's see what we will end up having. Most likely, it's something related on horses, but we'll see where we end up with there. And if you don't know why we talk about horses in the context of Chris Kent, you'll know when we get to that demo. I think everybody is getting more and more aware of that. Now, and then we'll have David Warner and Hugo Bernier talking about enhanced styles for list formatting in a list web part. And this is really cool initiative as well, and cool sample, which the guys have been building together, and you'll see definitely cool stuff on that one. And then as a final topic today, Wictor Wilen is going to have a getting started on using Yeoman for building your Microsoft Teams solution. So the Yeoman is the Yeoman generator for Microsoft Teams, which you can use to create tabs and bots and solutions really easily. It is a community-driven community initiative, fully open source, so you can actually really easily get involved and contribute on that one as well. And Microsoft is definitely helping on around the topic as well, and making sure that Wictor and the other people around that topic are aware of where we are heading. Now, let's actually quickly recap on a few things. Obviously, like I said already in the intro, we are looking into people volunteering to do the demos. It doesn't have to. You don't have to be an MVP. It doesn't have to be open source sample, but it's not about promoting your product either. So somewhere in between is completely fine as well. So we're definitely looking into having more and more presenters and different presenters in this course. So if you're interested, do let anybody from the PnP team know. Contribution on the GitHub, more than welcome. We have a lot of stuff. There's actually some movement on the GitHub side as well. We moved some of our community-owned repos to the PnP organization, but to be fair, is completely seamless for you. So in the same way as Yo teams moved to the github.com/PnP organization, we actually earlier today moved PnP Sites Core and PnP PowerShell to the PnP organization, because they are actually community coordinated and community owned, so to say, but obviously we in Microsoft are working closely with community on those projects. And the most important one, always keep the feedback coming, be honest, be transparent, give us feedback. Something isn't working, something is working. Please let us know. Also remember, positive feedback is also good, and it's free to encourage people to actually continue being happy on their day-to-day work. So if you like something, what we're doing, somebody does an awesome job, let them know, because it is actually easiest way for making people happy and making them smile. And I would rather live in the positive world, regardless of what's happening across the world right now, than in the negative vibes all around. So positivity, let's stay positive and let's give feedback on things. Now, let's actually move on. Quick recap on the addresses. I didn't update this slide yet on the new URLs. All of the old URLs are still working. We have docs, we have videos, we have dev issues. All of this is still working and 100% functional. You'll see some transitioning on the names and terminology, but nothing too dramatical. So basic operations remain the same. We'll just evolve using the PnP Microsoft 365 PnP name. GitHub.com/PnP is growing to be more, let's say, active, where we will centralize a lot of our samples and community contributed samples. So you will see actually web parts and extensions and all of that stuff move to the PnP organization as well, because they are community contributed. So it's super clear on what's where and who owns what. And quite a lot of those samples actually are for Microsoft Teams and SharePoint as an example. So it makes sense that they're not in SharePoint organization, because it's, again, not just about SharePoint. So we're kind of doing cross-service and cross-platform implementations. Now, a few recap on things. So typical slide, which we keep on having here. So if you're looking into getting started on the open source community work and you're afraid of that and you don't feel comfortable, but you would like to actually get started, please have a look on our Sharing is Caring initiative. So Hugo and David, who are talking today as well, are actually helping on this one and really getting you started on understanding what is a Git, what is a GitHub, and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of people, actually, I would say even majority of the developers still do not know how to get started on contributing. How do I fork? How do I take updates from the origin? How do I do edits on the documentation? Or how would I add a sample? So that's why this initiative is super, super important for us. So making sure that people understand how to get started. Now, the second thing what I wanted to remind, our PnP Weekly is again out. At this case, it was Tracy. And Tracy has a difficult last name, so I'm not going to say her name. Well, Tracy Wonder Schuff, and most likely she doesn't like how that was pronounced, but that's fine. The latest PnP Weekly was on episode 75, because we transformed from the SharePoint Dev Weekly to the PnP Weekly, because in this in this podcast and video blog, we cover not just dev stuff and not just SharePoint stuff. So we cover quite a lot of stuff in a broad spectrum. And the discussion this time was really around personal blocking, the value of blocking, and why would people actually want to do that, and also the adapting of changes and all of that. So really great discussion with Tracy, and she's really fun to discuss with. So that was a lot of smiles in this one, so I would recommend to check it out if you have time. It is available as a podcast as well. One update, which is a recap from last time. So Yo Teams is moving over or is under the PnP umbrella now, and it has been moved to the PnP organization. Wictor is today in this call to actually show you the getting started on the Yo Teams to really cover the basics, and then in the future we'll have definitely more advanced scenarios as well. But let's go quickly to the open source side, and I think Bert, you should be on the call, right?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Excellent. Yes,
right.
Well, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. The CSOM Core libraries are our most used PnP open source component, like 31,000 tenants using this library on a monthly basis. So what happened in March? The March release is out now for like one week, something like that. March, we improved time user framework with access token. So you can provide access token to use time user framework if you want to do that. and several bug fixes. I think the most notable ones are that we kind of updated the SP2019 CSOM assemblies, the ones which we used to build our packages. So that's a good thing. And furthermore, there were several reliability improvements done by the community. Thanks for that. Looking forward for April, and I also added the change logs here, by the way. So if you really want to see what's coming up and what's done, the change logs are probably the best way to figure out. But we have a new extension method called ensure app catalog async, which you can use to ensure that there's always an app catalog, which is quite important if you want to deploy an application. So this one really helps in that scenario. And there is again,
I'm going to say what you said. I'm going to say what you said in a different way, just to make it clear. It's an API to create an app catalog in a tenant. SharePoint app catalog in a tenant. Just making sure that. Yeah. Sorry, Bert.
Yep. No, but that's right. That's what it is, and it's needed if you want to deploy apps and if you want to ensure that the app is there, and then the catalog is there before you can deploy the app, which is something that we need in the provisioning service, for example.
Yep.
All right. I think we can move to Erwin if he's in the call.
Yep, let's do that. I'm answering Ralph's question. The question is about tenant app catalog. So you're able to provision app catalog in a tenant level. So it's obviously one app catalog per tenant, but still you can provision that if it's not there. And Erwin?
Yep, I'm here. I can add to also, like if you're a bit of a coder and you look out inside Core how we did that. You will not see any rocket science happening there, but all the rocket science happens actually behind the scenes. So even though you only see us creating a site collection, but behind the scenes it's actually marked as the tenant app catalog. So it's registered in your tenant administration. If you go there, you will see that is then your current app catalog.
You mean that Microsoft actually did something correct at this?
They did. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. This is what we mean with positive feedback. So thank you, Irving, for doing that.
Great work, Microsoft. Yeah.
Thank you.
So as already mentioned, PowerShell, we moved to into the PnP organization. That means that the URL changed, but you don't have to update all URLs if you have URLs somewhere written documents, because the old URLs that's GitHub taking care of that. They automatically redirect to the new location, and that also includes if you have any repos pointing to local repos, GitHub repos on your local machine that point to a remote or an upstream pointing to this repo, it will just happily continue to work. So effectively, you don't have to do anything, but you might consider in the future to update some things. So we have some various additions and fixes to commandlet, some parameters added and that kind of stuff. Nothing shocking there. I urge you to check out the changelog. There was one major fix that took us a bit of not figuring out and testing and debugging and finding out, and a couple of meetings. But the February release, we changed some of the things internally in PowerShell on how we resolve assemblies. We have to do some tricks when it comes to Newtonsoft, the JSON serialization, deserialization code that we used in PnP Core and PnP PowerShell. We have to do some tricks there to actually resolve the correct version, because some other assemblies expect another version. It's a long story. So we overwrite how .NET resolves those. And that went wrong in Azure Functions v1. It was pointing to the wrong assembly, and we now finally fixed that. So if you have an issue with running PnP PowerShell in a v1 Azure function, we recommend you to upgrade to the March release, because that one works. Upcoming, I didn't put the upcoming there, but so the app catalog async, there is a PowerShell equivalent register PnP app catalog site, which does work for you.
Yep. We're finally getting it. It's been a while for getting that one out. And quick modernization tooling update as well.
Yep. So just like mentioned by Erwin, this repo has been moved to the PnP organization. So SPDev-modernization is inside the PnP organization right now. March release contained a preview for term mapping, which allows you to map taxonomy terms from a source environment to the target environment in SharePoint Online where you are creating your pages. So if you have like managed metadata columns in your source, you can just provide another term for those columns in your target environment. We have improved media web part handling and some log improvements. Now, for April, the next one, what's coming up, we are fixing a couple of bugs in the term mapping. It is in preview, and we have some test reports and some things to fix, but nothing major. But we'll get to a state where we can declare this feature as GA in the April version. And again, there's the typical small bug fixes here and there to kind of improve things. Nothing major though. Then for the scanner, nothing really major. There's a bug fix release out to 2.10 that I kind of silently released without too much kind of talking about it, because it's just a minor bug fix. For the 2.11 release, I don't have like a big backlog of things to do, so I'm just kind of waiting and seeing what comes up, and either from internal or external demand. So we'll see.
So if something is missing from the modernization tooling, please let us know so we're able to actually include that in. It might be that it's just let's say, it's a silence before the storm, so to say, when people are really starting to give you impacts.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not saying that I'm out of work though, so let's don't.
I think you have plenty of to anyway.
Plenty of things on my to-do list, yeah. But one more thing, just the reminder, think about dialog logs if you're using them. Most of you are probably not using them, but if you're using them, they will be removed in a couple of months. So time to migrate.
And by the way, the easiest way to figure out is anybody in your tenant using them is to use the modernization scanner. So just in case, as a tenant administrator, execute that in your tenant, and then you'll know, are there any critical information. It would be pity that some director is actually blocking and you're not aware of that, and then suddenly we get rid of the delf blocks, and then the person is angry. So that's why we always keep on repeating that. Thank you. Sorry, Bert, for stealing your reminder there. But let's actually move into the demos. So Chris Kent, I can see you on the call. You are already a presenter. So we should be good to go. Are we seeing horses today?
Of course.
Of course. What would Chris's demos be without horses?
And you guys,
and I'm pretty sure that there's again people on the call who are like, what are we talking? Why aren't they? Anyway, I can see your screen.
All right, let's do it then. So, hey everybody, I'm Chris Kent. There you go. All right, let's take a look at some stuff. So, we go to our classic Warrior Horses site that we all have. And one of the things people may not know about the Warrior Horses is they love formatting, but they also love battle, and they love, killing and murder and destruction and all those kinds of things. But that doesn't mean that they don't care. Specifically for the horses among them that are less able, right? So the horses that have either been injured in battle or have different needs for accessibility and everything else. So they want to make sure to be inclusive in their formatting. Makes sense. So if we go to our classic things list here, all right, we take a look here. We've got kind of our progress bar here, and this makes sense. And here, those of us that can see, it's pretty easy to see the percentage of progress and what's going on here. Now, if I enable something called, I'm going to use something called Chromevox, which is a nice little extension up here that turns on the voice recorder or voice or screen reader. Let's turn that on. Okay, make sure we've got that on. 1 second here. There we go. Can everyone hear that voice? All right.
No voice. No voice, unfortunately.
You don't hear the voice?
Your microphone is working way too well.
You can't hear the voice? Oh,
nope,
no.
We can't hear the voice. The voice is only in your head.
All right, well, I'll just read it back to you. How's that? When I click on this cell on my screen, it'll just tell me cell. So it tells me nothing about it being a progress bar, the value, or anything along those lines, right? So I'm going to go and turn that off then. But you guys should check out Chromevox. It'll help you a lot, but I'll still show you what we're going to do about this. So if we come in here and we go to column settings, we're going to format this column. You'll see it's pretty standard here. We're just displaying the length based on the current field's progress. It is a percentage field, right? So it's 0 to 1 value. Now, first thing we can do is add something called a role, right? So if we add role here right in our attributes, say progress bar, and then if I were to click that again, since you're not hearing the voice, I won't. You would actually hear that now it understands that's a progress bar, and it's going to pass that information on to the screen reader. And that's one step, but the next step is to tell what the value is. So we would come in here and we say aria, right? And we'd hit hyphen, and we're going to say value now. And in this case, we're just going to put the current field, right? And the nice thing is it's going to understand that's a percent because we also provide these other values like aria value min. We say that's 0. Then we're going to say our aria value max is going to be 1. All right, so we don't need to do like normally when we display these things, we're having to convert this, multiply it times 100 to get the exact percent field and everything else. But because we're providing the minimum value and the maximum value, the screen reader is going to understand what percentage it should say. So now if we were to click on that with the screen reader again now, it would actually tell us, progress bar, 75%, 25%, or whatever the values are here. And so that's fantastic, right? Now, if we wanted to take that a little further, we certainly could, right? Because that's a little bit disconnected. So if we wanted to add something like, say, a label, so we could say aria label. Ooh, what am I spelling? Look at here. All right, we're going to make this actually a formula, right? So we're going to reference the title field because we know that's what this progress relates to. Then we're going to say title, and we're going to plus, and we're going to add space, and we're going to say progress for column name, right? And by doing that, now when it reads, it'll actually say things like hire horse trainer's progress 75%. Right, which is really helpful when you're clicking on the things and people are trying to understand what's happening on the page. And if we want
Chris,
to go,
Chris, sorry. I know that I'm breaking your flow, and this is extremely well scripted and everything, so it will be back to get to the moment. But there's a good point from Jim. Please, can you checkbox the system audio when sharing? So there's the option of sharing a system audio, and therefore.
And then we can hear it. Okay. So let's see. Let me. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to reshare in a second here. Let's try that.
Yep. Because Jim, that's a good point from Jim. It would be great to.
There it is. Perfect.
Awesome.
Good. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. So let's pretend I didn't do this yet. All right, just so we can hear what it sounds like without it.
Let's see.
Maybe that. Let's turn it on.
Use this dialog to format main list of folders.
Yep.
Column headers.
Perfect.
List of folders. Cell read only.
So if we go back a little bit, right? We click on this.
Cell read only.
We get cell read only, right? And that's coming from the ARIA labels that are actually being put together by SharePoint on the cell itself. Right? But it tells us nothing about
cell read only
displayed here, what we're trying to communicate. So let's go back in
text area.
A little bit of what we just did. Right. So if I add the role of progress bar, let's copy that from over here.
Left brace quote dot comma.
I have to watch
return
again.
Quote roll quote.
Right.
Space.
I should turn that off between copies.
Left brace comma.
So preview that.
Preview the column for progress bar.
Now we understand it's a progress bar.
Progress bar cell read only.
Which is great. Right. But again, now we got to get that value. Let's turn that off for just a second while we type.
Chrome box is now inactive.
All right, we'll copy over our values and our value min, the value max that we typed in before. Paste, right? And we get rid of our extra comma. And what else did I? Oh, and we add. How did I break the format here? Anyone spotting it? It's not liking my. Oh, right here. Nice to have a colon. There we go. We'll preview that. We'll turn this back on. And so now if we.
Project progress bar 54% cell read only. Progress display item form panel. Exited dialog. Progress bar 75% cell read only.
So see, we're already making progress. Now we're actually communicating to the screen reader what we're displaying visually with our column format. Now, if we want to go a little crazy or a little more
text area,
we're going to add the ARIA label here. What was that?
Left brace quote comma. Space.
That again.
Quote ARIA label quote, comma.
Let's preview that.
Preview.
So now
preview.
Here.
List of full progress bar 75% cell read.
Again.
Progress bar 70. List of folders. Project kickoff progress. Progress bar 54% cell read only. List of progress bar 75% cell read only. Progress bar 75%
shows up. Again, the Chrome
progress bar 54% cell read. Project kickoff progress.
All right, everyone following?
Progress bar 54% cell read. List of folders, file, Chromevox is now inactive.
So now what if we were doing something, we're trying to display something a little more obvious about what we want to say here. So for instance, what if in our style, we decided that to add this background color. Here we're saying if the current field, is greater than 50%, keep this kind of themed color we've got. Otherwise, turn it fire brick red. All right, if we take a look at that, now we've got this nice kind of indicator saying like this is not complete enough or whatever it is we're trying to indicate. But when we turn that, screen reader back on.
Use this dialog, list of folders, progress bar 44% cell read only.
We lose that kind of extra contextual information. So one of the things we can do, instead of having, giving it the value here.
Text area, Chromevox is now inactive.
We're going to instead replace these ARIA value nows and value mins, and instead we're going to put in value text. This is where you can very specifically control how it describes that value. So in this case, we're using a similar formula, and we're going to say when it's greater than 0.5, we're going to say getting there, and then when it's less than 50%, we're going to say not even close, and then we're going to say that percentage ourselves, right? So this gives us even deeper control over some of these things. So let's preview that.
Preview the column formatting. Progress bar getting there. 75% cell read only. List of progress bar not even close. 44% cell read only. Chromevox is now inactive.
So you can see we're already making a huge difference in the accessibility of our formats and making sure that our formats are not just wowing people that have the ability to see them, but also are interacting in a way that other people can take real advantage of our values and the kind of, dynamic definition, the visualization ourselves that we're trying to express through this can be translated over there. So we just need to be a little bit careful about using our ARIA labels and so on. This becomes really important in things like, if we take a look at the FAQ list we did last week, or we've got some, text on the screen like this, or if we did something like, let's turn it back on here.
Microsoft Office FAQs.
All right. So it's
heading one main
things. But if we were to do let's see if I can.
Heading list.
Right. If we start
Warrior
headings,
Warrior horses.
The headings that are showing
FAQs.
Up, right. And if we
heading one main
list like this, it becomes
press
very
enter
difficult.
to accept or escape to cancel. Down for next and up for previous. Q can I have a hug?
Oh, stop
no.
reading.
Hugs are from the devil. How do horses even perform hugs? Q. Chromevox is now inactive.
We'll turn that off for a second. But the idea here is we want to provide that kind of navigation that screen readers use, so it doesn't just have to read through all of the FAQs, right? If they're trying to be able to navigate by heading. Now, normally you would do things like that by specifying an actual heading element, right? And it would automatically pick up on that, like an H1, H2, that kind of thing. But those are not part of the whitelisted elements that are available in list formatting. So this is, again, where we're going to use something like ARIA labels here. So we're going to format this view. And if we just go down to where that title is, right, where we're actually putting, so we've got our Q here, and then we have the title of the question. And instead we add, scroll back up so we can see that, our own attributes here. Attributes, we'll have a little curly brace, come up here. And now we're going to add a couple of things here. So we're going to add role again, and this time we're going to say it's a heading. And then we're going to add one more ARIA label. Right, so we're going to say ARIA level, and in this case we're going to say it's a heading 1. So this allows us to communicate to the screen reader that although this is just a div or a span in this case, this should be considered an H1 element. So if we preview that, make sure we did that, we'll turn this thing back on.
Use this dialog to format FAQs list of folders, heading list, banner. When is it okay to murder a horse?
Right. So now
heading.
We're already starting to communicate.
Press enter to accept or escape. Heading.
It allows some of the kind of navigation, and we can start marking elements of the page for screen readers to pick up on that information. Okay? All right. So we're going to go through, a lot of our samples are missing the
text area
right now.
Chromevox is now inactive.
We've started the process of adding some of these. In fact, you'll find even the out-of-the-box kind of design wizards aren't putting some of these ARIA labels in like they should. But we'll see if we can work on that. But the background of the samples, we'll be going through and adding a lot of these elements as well for accessibility. And in fact, that's one area, if you're looking to contribute, would be very, very helpful to do that. So let's go back. Let's review just real quick. So ARIA stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications. There's several guides out there on what are the different roles that are available, What are the different ARIA things that are there? And list formatting supports both the role and ARIA. So you can put ARIA hyphen anything. So all of those will pass directly through to your element. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. So over here, here's a really nice guide by the Mozilla organization, right? You can check out this link, and they go in depth about why you want to do it, what's the best way to do it. If you want to use the tool I was using, ChromeVox is just a Chrome extension, makes it for easy testing. You can always, of course, activate your navigator if you're in Windows 10, but that's it controls everything. So ChromeVox is nice because, again, we can narrow down to just the specific elements we want to test. And then we've got a couple of formats that are already showing what I showed today, the number data bar and the FAQ format that are available in our list formatting repo. So check those out. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Excellent, Chris. Thank you for that one. That was a funny one. We missed a few minutes before the setting. Thank you, Jim, by the way, for sharing how to get the system audio to work. And then I think we need to do some practicing related on the fact that if you talk on top of the screen reader, we can't actually hear you, Chris. But it's all good. I think the message came through here and there. So, and it was really funny. So a lot of feedback on that one in the chat as well. So thank you for that one. I think it is time to jump to David and Hugo. We're 2 minutes off the schedule, but if we take slightly longer today, hopefully Wictor has some time. I'm not going to stop on the hour either, but let's try to catch up slightly. So, David, Hugo.
Yes, sir. Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. All good.
Hello, this is Hugo testing my microphone.
Yes, we can hear you both. Take it away.
Well, we are going to be discussing enhanced styles for list formatting. We have no murdering of horses or death by hugs today, but we will have some other cool stuff. So hopefully everybody will enjoy it. I am David Warner, joined with Hugo Bernier. You guys know us both, but feel free to reach out if you have any questions. All right, so what is enhanced styles and how does it relate to a web part? Well, what is it? So it begins with an SPFX web part, which provides us the opportunity to put CSS styles on a single page to override list formatting definitions that we've created. Now, you may have seen in the past where we've done this via SPFX extensions. I've done one in the past where I showed how to include icons and animate those icons. But of course, that was an extension. So it means it's going to be on every page and every site collection where it's loaded, whether or not you use it or not. And so a web part only affects the pages where it's added, which is beneficial because it's going to provide better performance. And it allows you to provide different enhancements to the same list formatting experience on different pages where you might find that needed. Now, what are the rules of use? Because this definitely has some of those towing the line opportunities where you could use it for irresponsibility, right? So you only want to use it where you own the HTML. We own the HTML within our list formatting. So with great power comes great responsibility. We want to be a superhero, not a supervillain. Of course, there's a dependency here. We want to set up our list formatting definition out of the box to be as robust as we can. So take advantage of everything that is included with list formatting out of the box, things as well as what you saw Chris doing for accessibility and all of the above. So if you do extra enhancements like you're going to see today, just realize that there's that dependency on your web part and the styles being included on that page. And so obviously it's not attached to the list definition, it is an add-on. So what are the types of opportunities for list formatting? Where do they make the most sense and why would we want to use them? Pseudo classes and elements are two of the items, right? Because you can get hover, you can get visited. There's a number of things that you can tap into with pseudo classes and elements that are not includable on list formatting definitions by default. That includes animations such as keyframes, things like that. So we see a much more friendly version of Parker flying in on his warrior hearse. We can hover over it. We can see an animation occur because of that, right? So warrior horses charge. So let's see a demo. What does that look like? So here we have a list formatting. This is on a page in the list web part. So it still looks great. This almost looks like, and virtually does look like a custom web part, right? But we can take it a little bit further. So the first thing we want to do is edit our page and we'll go load the web part. So it is called Enhanced List Formatting. It should hopefully be in the repo soon. We've got a PR ready for it. So feel free to look for that soon. You click on it, and of course, there's some warnings here, right? Much like we get on our GPS, we don't want to be interacting with the GPS while we're driving. There are some rules of engagement. So if you misuse this web part, there's lots of side effects that you do not want to have to live with. Broken styles, potentially, if you use them incorrectly, trying to override SharePoint where we don't own the HTML. Users will call and ask you why SharePoint is broken. You'll have tears, nightmares, blue screens of death. Nobody wants that. So we want to go ahead and make sure that we use it responsibly. So when we accept that, we can add our custom styles. Now, Hugo wanted to make a note about this feature here.
Yeah, so this is a custom property control that I built that uses the Monocle editor. I actually largely borrowed from Chris Kent's solution for including the Monocle editor. I mean, as a general rule, anytime you can borrow from Chris Kent, do what he does, you should do that in real life. But this actually is something that we've designed so we could reuse it in other solutions with any languages. However, if anybody's an expert when it comes to dealing with Webpack, I would love to find a way to leverage your expertise to optimize how this is bundled into the web part.
Excellent, thanks, Hugo. So what I'm going to do, what I've got off screen is a number of styles. We're not going to go into the details of the styles because those could be shared, but what I'm going to do is bring it over and paste it in. Now, what I've done is I've included the ability to create a very simple ribbon around our names. Now, this is using a before and after attribute. You could do that with just an image. It's a little more complex. This allows it to be completely CSS styled, so it's going to be responsive. Very simple. We're starting easy and slow here, but it's still a nice little experience. Let's take it a step further. Go ahead and remove that, and we'll go ahead and add a button. Now, what's happening in this button is there's a hover effect, and it's going to be like a metallic glimmer or shimmer. So as I hover over it, you can see it's almost like I'm kind of painting on the experience of orange, or it's metallic being shifted in the light, right? So some hover effects, things that are only accessible through that pseudo attribute. Let's step it up a little bit. Now we're looking at a community collection of community contributors through Polaroids. Now this, as we see it, is simply just list formatting. You can achieve exactly what we're looking at here with pure list formatting, which is really, really cool, but we can still take it a little bit further. So we'll edit the page, we'll add the web part, we'll accept like Bo did, and we'll paste in a little bit of a change. And what's happened is you see now it kind of added a little bit of a random tilt to the Polaroid. So there's a little more randomness, looks like they're laying on a table, which I think provides a little better experience. And if I hover over it, now it brings to attention the individual person that I'm hovering over, right? It's great, but we can do better. Let's go ahead and edit our style, remove the default, add another one. And now there's two things that have happened. We see that we've customized the font and the entire card or Polaroid has become black and white. And the reason it's become black and white is because now when you hover, we color filter and shift into color from the black and white. So a pretty cool effect. But wait, there's more. If we go ahead and add one more, we'll delete that. And you can always go ahead and open the full screen editor right here too. So if we wanted to do that and paste it in, we could hit save. Now we see that it's done everything we've seen so far. It's tilted it, it's turned it black and white, changed the font, but you'll notice we added a little heart down here. So perhaps there's some sort of engagement service that we work with that works off something like a hyperlink. We know we're not going to override this with JavaScript, but perhaps a click event could be tied to some service for likes or favorites. And so if I hover over Bo here, and then I hover over the heart, you can see a little animation occurred. And that's all using CSS animations and sprites. So the power here is significant when you talk about being able to utilize things like pseudo attributes and animations via CSS for HTML that we do technically own. So let's jump back to the presentation, and Hugo's going to talk through some of the sample code.
Thank you, David. So what you're looking at here is an overview of what the solution looks like. It's broken down into kind of the controls, which includes the editor and the web part. We're going to focus into the controls. And specifically, what you see here is that we have kind of localization. We have the custom build of the Monaco editor, which is a solution that Chris Kent used before. And then we have the Monaco editor, editing control, and a property field control that allows you to embed the Monaco editor in your property pane. The second part is the web part itself. And the web part obviously is made of the web part and the control that renders the web part. The web part itself has the enhanced list formatting. And if we go into the web part itself, you'll see here how we call our property field Monaco editor. Again, like I said, we built this so that we could use any language. The Monaco editor, in this case, we're saying we're using the CSS language, and we're using the Visual Studio Lite theme. We could use any theme or any language, including custom language support. This is how we render the control. So if you click on the inside of this code, you'll see the first thing that we do, and this is very cheesy, very simple, but we simply create a style element that we can embed, and we actually put the custom CSS that you enter. Most modern browsers, actually all modern browsers, allow us to embed a style in the body of the page, and it will render it properly. On some older browsers, you have to include it in the header. When we designed this, we actually decided to not include anything in the header because we didn't want to break too many rules, so we included the style element in the body of the web part itself. All we do here is, if we're in display mode, all we render is the style. But if we're not in display mode, you'll see that the first thing we do is, if we didn't accept a disclaimer, we put our cheesy disclaimer on the screen. By the way, if you don't want to have that disclaimer, it was kind of intended as a joke, but if you don't want the disclaimer, you can just change the manifest of the web part to say that you've already accepted the disclaimer, and the web part will not display the disclaimer. The next part here is how we render our list formatting. And we just use the Office Fabric UI message bar to say, click here to add some cascading styles, or, you've already added some styles, click here to change them. And that's it for code, I believe. So we have some links that are available to you. Again, as David said, we have created a PR for this web part in the web part samples repository. There's some links here for the pseudo elements, pseudo classes, and animations. All those are valid things that you can use within the web part. But I would encourage you, and you're going to see this warning many times in the README and in the code. I would encourage you to only leverage what's available out of the box with the list view formatting first. Use everything you can, and only use this web part for things that are not supported. There's some styles that are not supported, like RGBA values are not supported, animations are not supported. That's when this web part should be used. And again, you should use it with great responsibility. That's it for me, David.
Yep, that's it for me too. Appreciate the time, guys.
Thank you for that one. Awesome stuff. I'm just merging the PR so we can actually share the link in the SPDevFX web parts in the community goal notes whenever we get this one out. But the next person, and an MVP as well, on the line is Wictor Wilen. Wictor, let's jump on your screen.
Yes, howdy folks. How are you all doing today? Let me share my screen here, and number 2, and let's get started. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint presentation, but hopefully we'll spend most of the times in demos. The Yeoman generator for Microsoft Teams applications, which is, I actually looked at the date for the first commit now. It's the first commit was made the 3rd of March 2017, so it's over 3 years old actually, this project. And it started out as a solution to building tabs easier. And this, ever since, it's evolved into building tabs for Teams, building bots for Teams, building messaging extensions, a lot of other things as well. over the last 3 years, a lot of community contributions has happened. We recently had moved the actual generator source code over to the PnP repository. So now it's under the PnP umbrella, etc. But it all starts, if you want to get started working with Microsoft Teams, you start by going to aka.ms/yoteams, which take you to the GitHub repo. There's a manual and instructions, etc. And let's take a look at that fairly quickly. Let's see if I can find the right browser. Here we go. This is actually the first commit, March 3rd, 2017. But if you go to ak.ms/yoteams, you get here. There's a README file on how to get started. I'll walk you through that fairly shortly as well. If you want to contribute, if you have issues, etc., use the Issues tab here, find something you can help out with. There's also a wiki, and we are in the process of moving that into better documentation. But there's some quick starts for you in here, the tutorials, how to build your first application. If you want to build an SharePoint Online provider hosted web part, we have that, etc. And also we keep sort of the change log of all the updates, etc. that's happening in here continuously. So let's go back to my presentation. And the first thing you need to do, you need to have a PC or a Mac essentially to get started with this. It's all built using Node.js. If you're coming from the SharePoint world, you should be very familiar. That's sort of the same kind of approach to scaffolding applications, but it actually ends there. So the reason, and I get this question often, why do we have a generator for Teams? Because you can build Teams application using SharePoint Framework. Yes, you can, but the only thing you can do with SharePoint Framework is sort of client-side tabs. The Yeoman generator, we can build a lot of other things. Specifically, if you have those kind of business processes that require server-side compilation or rendering and those kind of things, you want to hide your business logic, then you can build a server-side and client-side tab. That's also why I showed you the provider-hosted web part. If you want to build that kind of approach for SharePoint, then you can use the Teams generator. But also in the Teams application, we have bots, we have connectors, we have outgoing webhooks, and a lot of other things. So that is the power of this. It combines all those into a seamless application. The second thing you need to do is install the Yeoman tool, the Gulp CLI and TypeScript, and install those 3 npm modules. And once you have that, you can actually install the generator. And that's easy. So just type npm install generator -teams --global, and you will be set to go. And also, we always keep a preview version out there with the latest and greatest features, and just append at preview to that one if you want to try out the latest builds. And yes, please do that. We have a preview out right now with SSO support for tabs. And we need all the feedback we can get there so we can make sure and to build stable solutions. I will walk you through how to scaffold out a team or a team project, and then we also take a look at the demo. Hopefully the demo works. I would say sort of good and bad thing. Right now the usage of Teams is so huge, so we are actually being throttled when adding new tabs or adding applications. So we have a backup plan for that, but let's see how things goes. And let me first of all start off. Before I start scaffolding, I'll actually start my application in the background, so we have that running, and then we take a look at that later. But in order to scaffold a project, you essentially type yo teams. I will not run an npm install here, so I run you skip install, so we don't have to wait for all the npm packages, etc. So just type that, and then it will take a few seconds for the Yeoman generator start up and load. And right now I'm using the preview on my local machine here, and just give me a few seconds. Hopefully it works. So this is very familiar if you have been working with other Yeoman generators. We get a set of questions, and based on those questions, we scaffold out the project. So we need, of course, a name of our solution. We want to use the current folder that we're in right now to actually scaffold out the files. Then we need to give our application a name, and we just use the default one suggested here. You need to have a developer name. I'll put my name in here. And then we have an interesting option here. So Microsoft Teams applications are packaged into a manifest, and these manifests have a version, and depending on what version, you have different features. So what we're doing right now, we're actually supporting everything from 1.3 to 1.5, including the dev preview. 1.4 and 1.3 will most likely be deprecated in versions going forward. So typically choose the latest version or the dev preview branch if you want to try out the latest and greatest. So we choose the 1.5. There's some other questions here. I'm not going to walk you through all of them. This is the most important questions. This asks you for what kind of things do you want to add to your applications. So we have, as I mentioned, we have tabs, we have bots, we have outgoing webhooks, we have connectors, we have message extensions, and we also have localization support. So this is up to you to pick and choose what you want to add. But also the generators are built in such a way you can actually run it again. If assume you added a tab, but you want to add a bot later, or actually a message extension later, or a tab later, you can run it again. So we don't support all the different kind of options here. Of course, good opportunity for you to help out, but we support quite a few options, specifically around tabs, which are typically that you add multiple of. So let's choose a tab and a bot here just for the demo, and then just continue. And depending on what would you essentially put in here, you will be asked to follow-up questions. So I'll just click them through here. One of the cool things we already have built in an option for you if you want to include a test framework and some sample tests for you if you want to do proper testing. I'll skip that one for now. We also have support for application insights. I'll skip that one as well. Then I get to my tab. I give it a name. I choose the default one here. I can choose between a configurable and static. That will change from team and group to personal. Because the configurable one are the ones you can add to a team, and the static one is the one is a personal tab essentially. Let's choose a configurable one here. Then I can change and choose where I want this to appear in a team or in a group chat. We just choose the default one again. And this is a new feature in 2.13 preview. Do you want to add single sign-on support for this tab? Let's choose yes here. And right now, I'm just going to use the empty GUID, but essentially what you need to do is you need to register an app ID in Azure AD, which you should paste in here. You can always go back and modify this later. It's in the configuration file. So I typically, when I build my projects, I just click through here and add those IDs later. I also need an application ID URI, the same kind of thing here. I can change that one later. Then we have a cool thing here for if you want to actually create that kind of provider hosted web part. So do you want to add this tab to SharePoint Online? I can click yes here. Then I can choose if I want this as a full page application or just as a web part. So let's choose a web part and click enter. Then I'm getting into the bot questions. I'm just click through them very fast here. So there's a lot of questions being asked here. I need to create that one shorter. And once when I answered all the questions, it will scaffold out all the files for me in using a TypeScript. So everything is TypeScript on the server side, the client side, and all the required files to build this. And of course, you should run npm install, which I already done in a demo project here. So what happens is that you get a project that looks something like this. You get a lot of helper files, the gulp files, the webpack configuration, the tsconfig, etc. One thing that might be confusing if you're coming from the SharePoint world is that we use TypeScript both for the server side and client side components. That's why you see two different tsconfig files here, one which is used for client side and one is for server side. The same kind of thing in the webpack configuration, one for client side and one for server side. Under source, depending on what I scaffold out, of course, I get the manifest, and that's where the actual Teams application is defined, and that's what you can create with App Studio as well. And one of the things we're looking into is an import from App Studio. So you can define your application there and import it into the Yeoman generator and not running the actual generator, but importing that file instead. But in here, we see all the stuff that I entered, the tabs, the bots, etc., etc. But you can also see we have these kind of replaceable parameters here. So while we're building this and actually creating that Teams application zip file, we're replacing those with parameters which are stored in the .env file. So this is where I always can go in later and add my app IDs for my bots, for my tabs, SSO, and ngrok and whatever. So yes, I will change this ngrok auth token later. You also get the actual application. It's in here. We will have a bot, for instance, so we can take a look at the bot here. And this is my Hello Teams bot, extending the Teams activity handler, which is using bot framework 4.7. It contains some sample code, but also depending if you add message extensions, that will be inserted in here. So we have quite a cool way of actually inserting a Java or TypeScript into your already existing class. So even if you modified it, we can insert through the AST and the TypeScript object model, essentially insert the code into your application without destroying it. We also have the client-side web tabs, for instance. So we have the Teams tab here with all the React code that is required to create that tab. And all of them need to do is what I did in the background here to save some time. Actually type gulp ngrok serve, and it will start my application. And finally, we'll see this when everything is hosted. And if everything works now, let's hope for that, so we're not being throttled again. We can go into Microsoft Teams and upload our application into Team. So welcome to the team. I created this one just before this meeting. We go in to sideload application, go into manage team, and then we go into apps. And this is sort of the same thing that happens when you do the sync from the SharePoint app catalog, but we're doing it manual here. Of course, you can script this if you want to, but this is typically, I need to upload the application once, then you can modify your application. So the actual gulp files is monitoring your files just as in with the SharePoint framework. So when you save the file, it will recompile, etc., etc. And typically, you don't need to upload the manifest that many times. But what I need to do is choose the zip file. So we need to go to my code here, code demos, PnP, and let's choose hello teams. And when I run the gulp ngrok serve, it also created that zip file in here, so I can upload that one. And this is the confirm dialog. You have a tab in here. I have bots, I have messages, extensions, and click add to add it. And hopefully this works. It failed a couple of times this morning due to being throttled. Looks like I'm being throttled again. No, it did work. Cool. Awesome. Just slow now. So what happened now is since I had a bot in this one, I will actually first get a message in here. So a welcome message. And that's something we hooked up in the sample code. So you get that to start with. That's typically one of the things you should do as a best practice. That welcome card. And also to show you what we're doing in the background, you can see here we get the incoming post message from the bot framework in here, and that's what actually sends this to the team. I also have a tab in this application, so we click on plus here and we can choose hello teams, which is my tab, and let's see if everything works. So loading the tab, I have some dummy stuff in here, just configuration. This is up to you. It's a web page. You can configure whatever you want in here. The difference here between SharePoint Framework web parts tabs are that you actually do inside this actual dialog here, the first dialog, that's where you have the configuration. And then we click save. And actually it did work this time. So I wasn't being throttled. And also you see now we're actually typing out my name here. So we're using the Azure AD SSO features, the tab SSO features to get the graph information essentially here. And there's just a sample button and those kind of things. So you can start building with React. And we have some hygiene factors in here. First of all, or most importantly, is that we actually, if you go to settings here, we support sort of the dark and high contrast mode. So I switch to dark here. We'll actually get a dark experience of this one. So you don't have to worry about that. That's all built into the code that's been scaffolded for you. So that is how you get started building your applications with the Yo Teams generator. And we're have some interesting things coming in the pipeline right now, and some great support from the community and the PnP community. We will do a big new version we call it version 3, with the big refactoring on the actual structure of the code and make it a little bit more lightweight and more pluggable, so you can switch in and choose if you don't want to use React, for instance. You might want to use something else, or on the server side you prefer to use AGS for the templating engine. So all of that we're going to work on over the next few months. So I think I was on time there.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Victor. Really, really great demo on getting started, because we really need to have this getting started demos as well, so people know how to catch up if they or understand the basics to get started on things as well. So we shouldn't assume that everybody has been watching on every single session what we're doing. So thank you for Victor for that one. And AKA ms/yo teams is the address where you can actually find more information. And like Victor said, the wiki is right now where the The guidance is actually, by the way, really great already. And then there's more work being done related on getting the documentation more approachable, because the wiki isn't super approachable, but all good. So the samples and all the, whatever Wictor showed, AKMS, AO Teams, you install the Teams generator, and then you run the basic setup and follow up on the getting started guidance, and you'll be good to go with that one. Good. Like expected, unfortunately, no specific Q&A. There was a good set of Q&A happening on the chat window. If, by the way, again, chat didn't work for you for whatever reason, we do apologize. We're trying to get it to work and trying to get the updated guidance in place as well. The next Microsoft 365 Developer Special Interest Group, this is the bi-weekly meeting on Thursdays typically at 7 a.m. Pacific time, is on April 2nd, and the next SharePoint Framework Special Interest Group is 26th of March, so a week from now. And that's it from our side. So thank you for joining. Thank you for your valuable input. Thank you for valuable demos, everybody who did the demos today. You can keep the feedback coming. Everybody who are on these calls who are giving us feedback, your input really matters. So we're able to address what are the gaps and what are the things where we're investing, because we want to address your day-to-day work. So thank you for that. But that's it for now. Thank you. We'll see you hopefully within a week in a SharePoint Framework community call. Bye-bye, everybody. Cheers.